What's up everyone, Pags here at MEI Studio. This is a video I've been waiting to make for a long time, and I'm kind of glad I did wait because I recently tried a process that I've never tried before to add some fun to the finish of a mic. This time we're going to be resurrecting an old pair of Shure 55 mics to usable condition. A while back, my friend Bark over at Obscure Mics did a review on a monoprice stage-right Memphis Blue microphone, which is quite heavily inspired by the original Shure 55 mic. He seemed to like the Memphis Blue, and to be fair, for the price, it really didn't sound that bad. I'd asked if he ever tried out a Shure 55SH2 or the Super 55. He said he had not, so to satisfy an obsession of mine for keeping useful things out of landfills and for building things, I decided to try to get a pair of these mics into his hand with a twist. Let's see where this goes. I've been finding a bunch of 55s for sale on various sites online and Craigslist and local ads and things of that nature, and well, I've gotten about 10 of these so far. A few of these that I've gotten recently are pretty dinged up, and this one has writing all over it. Somebody decided to take a engraving tool and write a whole bunch of stuff in the side of it. But for the most part, the body is in pretty good shape besides all of this. And this is the second capsule for the 55, the 55S, which is the Unidyne 2 capsule. And it's held in with some rubber pieces at the top and a couple at the bottom. And it's held in by 4 screws that are located 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. So to remove this capsule, you have to remove all 4 of these screws. Now here's a quick comparison between the Unidyne 2 and the Unidyne 3 capsule. Unidyne 3 is what is commonly found in a Shure SM57 or SM58. And in comparison, this is the Unidyne 2. Quite a big difference here. Now, to get the entire capsule out, you have to remove 2 more screws. One of them's a hex bolt holding in the impedance selector, and the other one's a flathead screw, really tiny, that's holding the ground spring in place. And I'll get into what the ground spring is in a little bit. But these 2 need to be taken out as well for the entire capsule assembly to be released. You also have to desolder 2 wires that are coming from the handle here that are connected to the Amphenol connector at the bottom. This is all going to get replaced later. This is the assembly for the hinge in the middle of the microphone, and this is what it looks like when it's been removed. And once it's out, we can see the filthy body with the remnants of the mesh windscreen and the terrible aroma, which unfortunately you can't smell through YouTube. But yeah, this is now going to go to the grinder, and we're going to try to remove some of the words that were etched into the top and side of this mic using a wire brush wheel. So this is going to go into the grinder, and one of the other bodies that was also pretty messed up here is going in as well, and we're going to try to just remove a lot of the ancient debris that is stuck on this one. And this particular body had a lot of rot on the metal itself, and we're going to try and clean that up using some JB Weld. I don't have hopes for this one, but here we are with the one that had the writing on the side of it and the top of it, and I think I've gotten this down pretty good. It's pretty smooth at this point. And here's the JB Weld before cleanup. And most of the rot that was on this wouldn't be covered up by the powder coat job that I'm going to be sending it to. So once the JB Weld clay stuff hardens, you can file it down and shape it so you can barely see what was missing. Brought it over to Static Coatings in Island Park, New York. And in like a day or so, I wound up getting these back, and they look absolutely beautiful. One of the mics was a current version of the 55SH2, but the capsule was kind of rotted out, so I decided to get a new capsule for it. The current capsule by itself is $57. There are other parts that need to go with this as well. And the Super 55 capsule, which is the R115S, is going for around $129 right now. And it's a pretty easy job to swap the capsules out and turn a regular 55 into a Super 55. So let's start with the Super 55 and see what it's like to put one of those together. We're going to start with the XLR connector and the ground spring, as I like to call it. This spring acts as a ground for the body of the microphone, and the wires that come from the capsule don't have a ground, so this acts as the connection between the chassis and the XLR connector. So we basically just solder this spring into the tab to hold it in place and to make a solid connection between the connector and the spring itself. And I will say that the spring does retain a lot of heat and can get hot pretty quick. So you might not want to hold on to it for too long if you've got the iron on there for a while. But once it's on there, it should stay in place. And now we're going to make a connection between pin 1 and the ground tab that's on the XLR connector. That's just a little piece of metal that goes between pin 1 and where the spring connected. Now we're going to connect a couple of wires to pin 2 and pin 3, which is the hot and cold. I'm going to tin the wires first, just so that there's a little solder and make it easier to flow. And we also have to run these through the spring before we connect them to anything, because otherwise it's kind of a pain in the butt to get them through. And all we need is a little bit of solder to connect, since we have the cups already tinned and the cables already tinned. So it just takes a little bit and we're in. And that's it for the XLR connector. Next we have to feed the cables through the stem or the handle of the microphone. Since this is a Super 55, there's no switch to deal with, so the cables can go straight through the stem all the way up to the body. And there's a set screw on the bottom there for the XLR connector. And here we are just feeding the wires through the top portion of the body, the grill section. And really just needs to be put in place, and there's a little set screw that we talked about earlier. Once the set screw is screwed down, the spring is held in place and will just bend with the handle. Next we put the foam inserts in. This particular one, we're going to put some blue in here. And I still don't have a lot of confidence in this mic once it's put together. There's still some structural things that I'm seeing that I'm not 100% liking. So I'm going to get this thing together and see what happens, and then if I don't like it, we'll find something else to do with it. And now the hinge assembly is going in place. Just a big old bolt. Goes through the body. There's a little slip washer that can move out of the way. It can become a little bit of a problem. Now that middle piece is just a large screw, and it's got threading on two sides, so the bottom of it threads into the handle, and then there's a large nut that goes around the top of the screw here. That tightens on, and it just holds the whole assembly in place, so that way when you adjust the handle of the mic, it doesn't loosen up on you. And second to last, we're going to put the capsule into the body. And pretty much everything is already wired in this capsule. It's very heavy. Everything is made out of metal. All of the little connection arms that are kind of sticking out there, all of that is all metal. And all we need to do is make 2 connections and make sure that there's a good ground between the body of the mic and the ground pin that's on the capsule, which is the leftmost pad. So I'm just going to tin 2 pads here, and the 2 wires are just going to get soldered right down into that. With both of them done, that's pretty much it. And as I said before, not wild about the integrity of the metal on this one. This was the one that was pretty rotted out. And once I get it together, I'll be able to tell whether or not this is going to be a keeper or not. I have a feeling it's not going to be, but gotta give it a try. And there's 4 screws that connect the faceplate onto the back. And the final piece of this mic is to get the little switch cover put back on the front of the mic, and regardless of which version, all the parts on this mic are exactly the same, and they've been the same for many years. The handles changed over the years for different connectors and everything, but the head basket and grill has not changed in 70 years, just about. So for the Super 55, the little plastic piece goes onto the front of it. There's no switch there, but the Super 55 logo badge just kind of sits on top of it, and that's pretty much it. And as a final touch, we'll put the Super 55 Shure logo, which is blue, onto the little circle on the front of the microphone. And this one's done. Let's check out the regular 55SH2 now. Since this was already a SH2 to begin with, the spring connector is already assembled and ready to go. I don't need to replace the wires on this particular one, but it's exactly the same as the Super 55, with the exception of there's 2 small wires that connect to pin 2 and 3 that will serve as the on-off for the microphone switch. And the wires go through exactly the same way as on the Super 55. It has to be threaded through. Can be a little bit of a pain, but once you get it through, it's pretty much fine. And that spring has to make it all the way through and up to the back. That goes in a heck of a lot easier. And this one does have those 2 extra wires that come from XLR pin 2 and 3, I believe it is, which essentially mutes the microphone with the switch. Now the capsule assembly is weird. The capsule goes into this little plastic box with a metal retaining ring and kind of pokes out of the front of the box. The point of the box is to kind of emulate the original Shure 55 Unidyne 2 capsule. For the most part, this capsule looks like it's almost exactly the Shure SM58 capsule. It is definitely a Unidyne 3 style capsule, but don't know if it's exactly the same or not. And now I'm wiring up the switch. And I realized that the switch has to go through the plastic housing first before we put the wires on it, so I have to take those off quick and pop those wires back on. And even though it's a double pole, double throw switch, you really only need to use 2 of the connectors on the back of the switch. Shure uses a pair of the connectors on the switch. You can do that. It's definitely not necessary though. Once the switch is soldered, you can reassemble the handle there and put the switch plate on and put the screws in. Next, we have to connect the stem to the body. I'm going to put that bolt through. Again, same exact bolt and nut that the Super 55 has. Nothing is different on this at all. Now the powder coating makes it a little more difficult for it to go together, since some of the parts are a little bit fatter now, but by like fractions of a millimeter. So usually you can kind of work it in and it'll kind of do its thing. Unfortunately, I had to file off a little bit of the paint on the inside of the mic just to be able to get that washer to kind of sit flush there. And I also want to make sure that there's ground continuity between the head basket and the handle of the microphone. Even though the spring takes care of most of that, it's just good to make sure that it's grounded all the way through. With the body pretty much put together now, we're going to run the wires through the back half of the head basket or grill and we have to get that spring through the hole as well so that it can be tightened down using the set screw. If you bend the handle all the way back, the spring can make it through the body without having to stretch or expand at all. So you just bend the handle back and the spring makes it. You tighten down that little screw and you're good to go. Now you should also have ground connection between the top of the body and the XLR connector. Make sure the foam is good. And there's a little rubber grommet that the wires have to go through for the 55SH. That little rubber grommet fits into the plastic housing where the capsule is. We'll see that in 1 second here. And I'm just stripping the wire off so that once we get it into the little box there, we can solder it to the capsule. And to get the grommet in, we do have to remove the capsule first. Kind of annoying, but it is what it is. So once the wires are through there, we can pop the capsule in, make sure that the metal ring and the body are flush. And it's, again, 2 wires similar to the 55. We just got to put one on the left and one on the right. And that's pretty much it. The back of the housing goes on. Everything has to be flush for it to sit properly. And this whole assembly gets screwed together. And that's the 55SH2 capsule assembly. And this body was in pretty decent shape to start out with, so not having any reservations of this one being good to go once it's all put together. Screws are a little hard to put in. Unfortunately, the powder coating guy kind of got a little powder coat in the screw holes, but it's fine. And again, 4 screws for the faceplate to match to the back, and this mic is pretty much done. Now, I want to go back and figure out what I can do with that mic that I didn't quite like the body on, so I'm going to make this into an art piece. I designed a fake capsule assembly, if you will, for the 55 that can be 3D printed. Essentially, it matches the design of the Super 55 capsule, except there's no place for an actual capsule to go. It's just a cylinder. And around the cylinder, I'll be placing some LED strips that will turn the microphone into a lamp. So this thing chugs, and this is the piece that gets spit out at the end. And this is kind of what it looks like. It's kind of just a cylinder with some screw holes, and this is what the lamp winds up looking like when it's done. The lights are app controlled, so you can change scenes, colors, and make the light react to sound in the room, all from your phone or your tablet. So I had one other mic that I didn't do anything with, and I was doing a custom job for a friend of mine to turn a green bullet into a purple bullet, and I decided, well, since Bark's favorite color is purple, why not make him a purple 55? So if you want to check out what these mics sound like, head over to Obscure Mics, and Bark will take care of it from there. Just to let you know also, the black 55SH2, we are going to be doing a giveaway on, so again, check out Obscure Mics for the details on that. I'll catch you next time. This is Pags, signing off.